If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the book. Chapter 1. When Life Happens. Part 1. The Storm You Didn't See Coming. Life rarely sends a warning flare before it upends your world. One moment, you're planning weekend getaways. The next, you're staring at a $2,000 transmission repair bill with rent due Friday. Take Sarah, a graphic designer who felt financially stable until her appendectomy. Even with insurance, her $5,000 deductible arrived like a sucker punch. She spent nights awake, juggling credit card payments while recovering, her creativity at work evaporating under stress. Or consider Marcus, a restaurant manager whose job vanished overnight when his employer closed. With no savings, he faced eviction within weeks. These aren't rare tragedies. They're ordinary lives meeting extraordinary moments. Financial shocks don't discriminate. Studies like the Federal Reserve's report on the economic well-being of U.S. households reveal nearly 40% of adults couldn't cover a $400 emergency. This stress isn't just about numbers. It rewires your brain. Psychologists link constant money worries to cortisol spikes that cloud judgment, strain relationships, and even weaken immune responses. Think of it as trying to run a marathon with ankle weights. Every decision, from job choices to medical care, gets harder when panic sets in. What separates crisis from inconvenience? Preparation. Picture two neighbors hit by identical hailstorms. One spent months setting aside cash, they paid the deductible and moved on. The other faced insurance delays and took high-interest loans, spiraling into debt. This gap isn't about luck, it's about acknowledging life's volatility. As Dave Ramsey notes in The Total Money Makeover, unexpected events are going to happen, but they don't have to devastate you. Common emergencies follow patterns: health scares, job losses, car failures, or home repairs. Yet we often treat them like distant thunderstorms, ignoring forecasts until the rain soaks us. Scott Pape's The Barefoot Investor frames this brilliantly. Your mojo bucket isn't just money, it's a psychological shield. Without it, minor setbacks become catastrophes. With it, you gain breathing room to think clearly. Imagine facing your next crisis not with dread, but with quiet resolve. That's the shift an emergency fund creates, the difference between scrambling for lifelines and standing on solid ground. What would change if your bank account could absorb life's blows? Part 2. The Peace of Mind Jar. Picture this. It's 2 a.m. and your furnace dies during the coldest week of winter. Without savings, you're frantically calling relatives or considering payday loans. With an emergency fund, you simply call the repair service. That tangible shift from panic to calm is what financial experts call the sleep at night factor. Research consistently shows how financial buffers change lives. A Federal Reserve study found 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency. Contrast this with Northwestern Mutual's data. People with emergency savings report 56% less anxiety about finances. It's not about getting rich. It's about escaping what psychologist Brad Klontz calls financial vertigo, that dizzying fear of unexpected costs. Consider Maria, a teacher Dave Ramsey featured. Her $500 starter fund saved her when a flat tire threatened her job. "I didn't cry or miss work," she said. "I just fixed it." That small reserve became her psychological armor. Tony Robbins' interviews with billionaires revealed a surprising parallel. Even they prioritize what Carl Richards terms the oxygen mask account, cash reserves allowing clear-headed decisions when others panic. The ripple effects are measurable. Relationships improve. Couples with emergency savings fight 30% less about money, according to a Kansas State University study. Health outcomes shift too. The American Psychological Association links financial insecurity to 50% higher hypertension risk. Why? Chronic stress floods your body with cortisol. An emergency fund literally lowers your blood pressure. Bola Sokunbi of Clever Girl Finance frames it perfectly. Your first $1,000 isn't money, it's a mute button for life's alarm bells. This fund transforms decision-making. Aaron Lowry's Broke Millennial case studies show how job seekers with savings negotiate better salaries, while desperate applicants accept low-ball offers. One tech worker turned down toxic projects because her peace of mind jar bought choice. The magic lies in redefining security. Scott Pape's Mojo Bucket concept works because it separates survival money from spending money, creating psychological distance. Vicki Robin calls this the breathing room fund, space where creativity replaces dread. Start tonight. Put $20 in a jar. Label it Sleep Better. That visible token begins rewiring your brain. As Morgan Housel observes, money's greatest value is its ability to give you control over your time. Your emergency fund isn't just cash, it's the quiet confidence that when life happens, you won't break. Part 3. Lessons from the Unexpected. Consider Jenna, a graphic designer in Austin. When her freelance work dried up during the 2020 pandemic, her $1,500 emergency fund became oxygen. She covered rent for 3 months while pivoting to virtual event design. That cushion let me think clearly instead of panicking, she told Forbes. Contrast this with David, a Denver mechanic whose engine replacement wiped out his checking account. With no savings, he took a predatory payday loan. The $1,200 repair ultimately cost $3,800 after fees, trapping him for 18 months. These aren't rare scenarios. Federal Reserve data reveals 37% of Americans can't handle a $400 emergency without debt. But notice the scale. Jenna's lifeboat wasn't 6 months' salary. It was 3 weeks' groceries plus utilities. Scott Pape's Mojo Bucket principle proved true again. Even $500 changes outcomes. When Portland teacher Marcus faced a $600 dental emergency, his starter fund covered half. He negotiated a payment plan for the balance, avoiding credit cards. Knowing I had skin in the game made dentists work with me, he said. The ripple effects astonish. A Kellogg school study tracked 2 groups after unexpected bills. Those without savings showed 23% higher stress hormones and made 15% more cognitive errors at work. Meanwhile, Ohio nurse Chloe used her $2,000 fund during maternity leave. Though exhausted, she avoided debt collection calls. I could focus on my newborn, not interest rates, she recalled. This mirrors Morgan Housel's insight. Financial resilience isn't about wealth, it's about options during chaos. Recovery patterns emerge. After Milwaukee chef Ray lost his job, his emergency fund bought time to retrain as a dietary manager. His story echoes Dave Ramsey's finding. People with $1,000 saved rebound 65% faster from setbacks. They also ask smarter questions. Vicki Robin observed clients with funds consistently negotiated payment plans or bartered services, tactics rarely considered when drowning in panic. Your turn. What small win could your Sleep Better jar enable? A tow truck call? A week's groceries? Like Jenna's design pivot or Ray's career shift, preparation creates space for ingenuity. Start tonight. Put coins in that jar. When trouble comes, and it will, you won't avoid the storm, but you'll sail through it. Part 4. Your why matters. That jar you started last night? It's more than spare change. It's the first whisper of your financial freedom story. But let's get real. Why does this matter to you? When I worked with families rebuilding after crises, the ones who stuck with saving weren't just following steps. They'd anchored their efforts to something deeply personal. Like Maria, a nurse I met in Phoenix, she kept a photo of her daughter's college acceptance letter taped to her savings jar. Every dollar I put here, she told me, is a brick in the bridge to her future. Her why transformed saving from sacrifice into sacred act. What's your version of Maria's photo? Pause right now. Ask yourself, what would I protect if everything shook? Maybe it's your aging parents' medical bills, your dream of starting a bakery, or simply the dignity of saying, I've got this, when your car sputters. Dave Ramsey's research reveals people who attach emotion to saving goals are 42% more likely to persist past 6 months. That's not willpower. It's wiring your brain to see money as security for what you love. But let's address the elephant in the room. Fear. Scott Pape calls it the savings killer. I've seen clients freeze thinking, what if I fail, or it's too late? Remember James, a mechanic in Detroit? He'd avoided saving for years, convinced his $40 income made it impossible. Then his dog needed emergency surgery. Using Vicki Robin's Life Energy exercise, he calculated that skipping 2 takeout coffees weekly would cover pet insurance in 90 days. He started there. Not with grand plans, with lattes. Your strategy. 1. Name your fear. Write down 1 what if keeping you from starting. 2. Flip it. How would $500 change that scenario? 3. Start microscopic. Save $5 before bed tonight. Literally, Physical action beats mental resistance. Morgan Housel nailed it. Wealth is the ability to say, I have time. Your emergency fund isn't money, it's minutes bought back from panic. When Maria's hospital cut shifts during COVID, her fund gave her 3 months to upskill online instead of taking predatory loans. Your why is the compass, your jar is the map. Tonight, add those coins. But this time, whisper what they're buying. Peace, choices, tomorrow. Chapter 2. Building your safety net. Part 1. Start where you stand. Consider this jarring fact. Nearly half of American adults couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money, according to Federal Reserve data. That statistic isn't about poverty, it's about preparation. Your emergency fund journey begins precisely where you are right now, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck or managing debt. Financial coach Chris Hogan often shares how clients started with just $5 weekly transfers into separate savings accounts. That small step created momentum far more valuable than the dollar amount. First, honestly examine your cash flow. Pull up your last 3 bank statements and highlight recurring non-essential expenses, the streaming subscriptions you rarely use, the daily coffee runs, the impulse online purchases. When Erin Lowry wrote Broke Millennial, she emphasized that cutting just $15 weekly creates a $780 annual cushion. That's enough to cover a minor car repair or urgent dental visit. Scott Pape's Barefoot Investor method simplifies this with his Mojo Bucket, keeping starter emergency funds in a separate account, physically distant from daily spending money. The biggest roadblocks are psychological, not mathematical. I'll start when I earn more, or my debt is too overwhelming are common refrains. Dave Ramsey counters this in The Total Money Makeover with his $1,000 starter emergency fund concept, a psychological buffer that prevents debt spirals when life happens. One of his podcast listeners, a single mother earning minimum wage, saved this amount in 90 days by temporarily suspending cable and cooking all meals at home. Her breakthrough wasn't the money. It was proving to herself she could change habits. Automate your starting point before perfectionism paralyzes you. Set up a $20 weekly transfer to a dedicated savings account. Ally Bank or Capital One 360 work well for their high-yield options. Bola Sokunbi of Clever Girl Finance calls this paying your future self first. The act of moving money consistently, however modestly, builds what researchers call effort justification. Your brain values what you actively work toward. One fintech study showed users who saved just $5 weekly felt 30% more financially secure within 6 months, regardless of account balance. Progress compounds psychologically long before it compounds financially. A teacher I coached saved her first $500 over 8 months through roundup apps that collected spare change from purchases. When her cat needed emergency surgery costing $480, she avoided credit card debt for the first time in her life. That victory fueled her next goal, 3 months living expenses. Your emergency fund isn't about grand gestures. It's about redirecting life's loose change toward peace of mind. What small financial leak could you patch this week? Part 2. The Magic of Small Wins. That teacher story holds a powerful lesson often missed. The biggest financial transformations rarely start with a bang, but with a series of quiet clicks. Think of your emergency fund like building physical strength. You wouldn't try to lift 200 pounds on day 1. You'd start with manageable weights, gradually increasing. Saving works the same way. The $5 you consistently set aside isn't just about the dollar amount. It's about proving to yourself over and over that you can do this. Each successful deposit is a rep for your financial muscles. Research consistently backs this up. A landmark study tracking savings behavior found that individuals who set and achieved micro goals, saving a tiny amount daily or weekly, were significantly more likely to maintain the habit long-term compared to those aiming for large, distant targets. Why? Because small wins trigger dopamine release in the brain. This reward chemical creates a positive association with the saving behavior itself, making you want to do it again. It's not just about the money accumulating, it's about the confidence compounding. So how do you harness this? Make saving frictionless and visible. Automate a tiny transfer, even just $2 a day, $60 a month, into a separate savings account the moment you get paid. Treat it like a non-negotiable bill. Then make your progress tangible. Dave Ramsey champions the visual power of the debt snowball chart. Apply that same principle to your savings. Draw a simple thermometer on paper, coloring it in as your balance grows. Apps like Digit or Capital automate roundups effortlessly, turning your daily coffee purchase into a small, painless contribution. Scott Pape's Mojo Bucket concept works because it physically and mentally separates your safety net from spending money. Celebrate the milestones meaningfully, but not expensively. Hit your first $100? Mark it by cooking a special meal at home instead of eating out, acknowledging the win while reinforcing the habit. Aaron Lowry in Broke Millennial often highlights the power of no-spend challenges, saving the cost of one daily indulgence, like a latte for a week, as a focused way to generate a small win and prove self-control. That $35 saved feels like a triumph, fueling the next step. The goal isn't perfection, but persistence. Miss a week? Reset, don't quit. The habit loop: cue, payday, routine, automated transfer, reward, seeing the balance rise, coloring your chart, strengthens with repetition. Over time, the act of saving shifts from conscious effort to automatic behavior. This automaticity, championed by Tony Robbins as the key to the security bucket, is what builds true resilience. You stop debating whether to save, you just do it. The small wins accumulate silently, steadily building the foundation for the peace of mind Morgan Housel describes, knowing you have a buffer against life's inevitable surprises. How will you design your first tiny, triumphant step today? Because that next small win is waiting, ready to propel you forward, even when the bigger goal still feels far off. Part 3. Outsmarting Temptation. You've built momentum with small wins, turning saving into a habit. But what happens when temptation strikes? That carefully guarded fund can suddenly feel like a solution for life's non-emergencies. A vacation deal too good to miss, a friend's wedding in Bali, or that limited edition gadget whispering your name. Consider Sarah, a nurse from Ohio featured in a Wall Street Journal personal finance column. She saved £3,000 for emergencies, only to drain half for a luxury handbag during a stressful month. The regret hit immediately. She'd traded long-term security for momentary relief. Her story isn't unique. A Federal Reserve report found that 40% of Americans couldn't cover a £350 surprise expense without borrowing. Often, easy access and emotional triggers undermine our best intentions. Protect your safety net by creating physical and mental barriers. Open a separate savings account at a different bank, like Marcus by Goldman Sachs or Starling Bank Spaces, and don't carry the card. Dave Ramsey calls this out of sight, out of mind principle, non-negotiable. When tempted, impose a 24-hour cooling-off period. Scott Pape swears by this in The Barefoot Investor, noting it cuts impulsive spending by making you confront the real need. For extra defense, recruit an accountability partner. Aaron Lowry's Broke Millennial shares how Maya, a teacher in Texas, texted her sister before any non-essential purchase over £75. This simple act reduced her impulse buys by 60% in 3 months because explaining her choices forced honesty. Visual reminders reinforce your why. Tape a photo of your kids or a goal like a mortgage-free home to your debit card. Tony Robbins often recounts how a client avoided a £5,000 splurge by keeping an emergency medical bill visible, a raw reminder of past stress. Finally, define emergency strictly. Morgan Housel writes in The Psychology of Money that clarity prevents rationalization. Is a cracked phone screen an emergency? Only if your job requires it. Otherwise, save separately. Like James, a London barista interviewed on the Meaningful Money podcast, who kept his fund untouched during a car breakdown by labeling his account, "Do not touch, medical job loss only." Stumbles happen. Sarah rebuilt her fund by setting up text alerts for every withdrawal, adding friction. Now she pauses, asking, is this future peace of mind or present panic? Your turn. What's one barrier you'll create today? Because next, we'll make saving effortless. No willpower needed. Part 4. Making saving automatic. Here's how to turn saving from a chore into a silent partner working for you. The biggest barrier to building an emergency fund isn't income, it's attention. Every time you manually transfer money, you're forced to make a choice. Save now or spend now. This decision fatigue is why studies like the University of Warwick's 2019 analysis found that people using automated tools saved 73% more annually than those relying on willpower alone. Automation removes the mental tax of choosing. Start with your paycheck. Split your direct deposit so a portion, even £5, goes straight to a separate savings account before you see it. Banks like Monzo or Starling let you create pots for this instantly. Dave Ramsey calls this paying yourself first, but you needn't wait for perfection. When Tara, a nurse from Manchester, set up a 1% auto transfer from her £28 salary, she saved £23 monthly without noticing. Within a year, she'd covered a vet emergency. Roundup apps transform spare change into security. Apps like Plum or Chip connect to your bank, rounding up each coffee or bus fare to the nearest pound and moving the difference to savings. Research by Moneybox shows users save £45 monthly on average, $540 yearly from forgotten coins. James, the barista from our last section, used roundups to rebuild his fund after his car repair, calling it invisible saving. 3 rules for sustainable automation. 1. Separate accounts matter. Keep your emergency fund in a different bank than your checking account. As Morgan Housel notes, physical separation creates psychological friction against impulsive dips. 2. Start absurdly small. Automating £2 daily feels painless but yields £730 yearly, enough to cover a broken boiler deductible. Scott Pape's Mojo bucket grows fastest when contributions feel trivial. 3. Review quarterly. Set a calendar reminder to adjust transfers after life changes. Got a raise? Bump savings by half the increase. Facing higher rent? Scale back temporarily, but never pause entirely. Automation's real power isn't just financial, it's emotional. When Tony Robbins interviewed retirees for Money, Master the Game, 89% cited automated savings as their sleep-at-night factor. By making saving a background process, you're not resisting temptation, you're redesigning the system. Next, we'll explore how this foundation lets you handle surprises without panic. Chapter 3. Keeping the net strong. Part 1. When life throws a curveball. Consider the moment your car sputters to a stop on a deserted highway at midnight. Your heart races, but then you remember the emergency fund. This isn't just money, it's a decision-making shield. Studies like the Federal Reserve's 2020 survey of household economics show people with even $250 set aside avoid predatory loans 74% more often during crises. That buffer transforms panic into purposeful action. First, diagnose the emergency. True emergencies threaten survival, sudden job loss, critical home repairs, or essential medical care. When Sarah, a graphic designer, faced unexpected surgery, she asked, "Can I function without addressing this immediately?" Contrast this with her coworker who drained savings for a last-minute concert trip, a want disguised as urgency. Dave Ramsey's 4 walls framework helps. Prioritize food, utilities, shelter, and transportation above all else. Next, gather your team. Financial therapist Amanda Clayman notes that families who discuss money emergencies openly recover 30% faster. When Mike lost his manufacturing job, he called a kitchen table meeting with his partner and teens. Together, they paused streaming services, switched to generic groceries, and deferred non-urgent dental visits. This collective focus conserved their 6-month fund. Stretch every dollar strategically. Contact providers immediately. Hospitals often offer income-based discounts, and utilities may extend grace periods. After Hurricane Ida, Louisiana residents who negotiated payment plans with FEMA preserved 40% more savings than those who didn't. Temporarily shift discretionary spending. Pack lunches, pause subscriptions, or use public libraries for free internet. Scott Pape's Mojo bucket concept works because it's separate from daily accounts. This mental boundary prevents casual dipping. Finally, document everything. Keep receipts and communication records. This creates clarity amid chaos. When Priya's apartment flooded, her itemized log helped secure maximum insurance reimbursement. She then replenished her fund within a year by freelancing weekends, a bridge to our next discussion on rebuilding. Your emergency fund isn't a failure when used. It's wisdom in action, turning what could be a downward spiral into a manageable detour. Part 2. Rebuilding after the rain. Priya's story shows something crucial. Using your emergency fund isn't defeat, it's proof the system works. Now comes the rebuild, and I've seen countless people do this faster and smarter than they imagined. Take Carlos, a teacher from Dave Ramsey's podcast. After a medical bill drained his savings, he felt stuck. His breakthrough? He treated rebuilding like a classroom project. breaking it into small, measurable units. He started saving just $5 daily via automatic transfers, then scaled up as side gigs kicked in. Within 18 months, he'd tripled his original fund. Start by setting a new target that respects your current reality. If saving $1,000 monthly feels impossible, aim for $100. Scott Pape's Mojo Bucket principle applies here. Keep this money physically or digitally separate. Visual separation builds psychological commitment. One survey by Clever Girl Finance found people who named their emergency savings account, car repair shield, or job loss backup were 37% less likely to rate it for non-emergencies. Finding extra cash often means rethinking routines, not deprivation. Aaron Lowry's Broke Millennial readers often share simple switches. Negotiating bills. One caller saved $480 a year on internet fees, or what I call the latte shift, diverting habitual small spends. For example, if you buy coffee thrice weekly, brewing at home twice frees up $20 monthly. That's $240 yearly, no side hustle needed. Tony Robbins emphasizes tracking these invisible drips using apps like Mint. Seeing $30 monthly vanish on unused subscriptions? Cancel too. That's $360 back annually. Motivation thrives on visible progress. Carl Richards suggests a rebuild calendar. Mark off each $100 saved with a sticker. Physical acknowledgement tricks your brain into celebrating micro wins. When Priya hit half her target, she booked a free library museum pass, a reward reinforcing momentum. Studies on habit formation, like those in Atomic Habits, show linking savings to identity. I'm someone who rebuilds, sustains effort better than guilt. Setbacks refine resilience. After Hurricane Katrina, many survivors rebuilt emergency funds with community saving circles, pooling small contributions. Their average recovery time beats solo attempts by 5 months. Your rebuild isn't just restoring a number, it's upgrading your financial reflexes. Next, we'll explore how to evolve this fund as your life expands. Part 3. Growing with your life. Consider your emergency fund as a living part of your financial ecosystem, not a fixed artifact. Just as a sapling needs more water and space as it matures, your financial safety net must expand to match your growing responsibilities and changing circumstances. Ignoring this evolution is like trying to fit into clothes from high school, uncomfortable and impractical. Take job transitions. Landing a higher-paying role feels like victory, but it often brings increased costs. Professional wardrobes, commuting expenses, or relocation fees. When Sarah moved from teaching to a corporate training position, her salary increased by 35%. Yet, her new role required cross-country travel and client dinners. Her previous emergency fund, built on a teacher's budget, wouldn't cover 3 months of these elevated living costs. She recalculated, targeting 6 months of new essential expenses. Conversely, shifting to freelance work demands an even larger buffer. Data from the U.S. Census Bureau and studies by the Pew Research Center consistently show income volatility increases significantly for self-employed individuals. Family changes dramatically shift the equation. Marriage merges financial obligations, while children introduce entirely new categories of essential spending: healthcare, childcare, education. Research from Brookings Institution analyzing family budgets found that adding 1 child increases necessary monthly expenses by 18 to 25% on average. Mark and Lisa discovered this after their twins arrived prematurely. Their meticulously planned fund, sufficient for a couple, strained under unexpected medical bills and the sudden need for specialized infant care. They rebuilt it, factoring in pediatrician co-pays and daycare deposits. Housing shifts are another critical trigger. Moving from an apartment to a home ownership introduces property taxes, insurance, and unpredictable maintenance. Think furnace replacements or roof repairs. Fidelity recommends homeowners target an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of all essential living costs, plus 1 to 2% of the home's value annually for maintenance. Downsizing in retirement? Your fund must shift focus towards potential long-term care costs or medical deductibles, areas highlighted in AARP's financial planning resources. How often should you reassess? Treat it like a vital health checkup. Schedule a formal review annually or immediately after any major life milestone: a new dependent, a significant career shift, a large purchase, or a change in housing. Ask yourself, what new essential expenses have I acquired? What single financial shock could derail me now that wouldn't have before? Use free budgeting tools from nonprofits like the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, NFCC, or apps recommended by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, to track spending shifts accurately. Flexibility is non-negotiable. Your fund's purpose remains constant, protecting you from financial disaster. But its required size and composition evolve. Think of it as upgrading your life raft as your voyage extends into deeper waters. What amount provided security 5 years ago might leave you dangerously exposed today. Regular, honest adjustments ensure your net remains strong, precisely when life's currents shift. Next, we'll see how others navigated these exact transitions, turning theory into lived resilience. Part 4. Learning from others. Financial storms hit everyone eventually, but why do some capsized boats sink while others stay afloat? Research from the Urban Institute reveals a critical pattern. People who learn from others' financial journeys recover 50% faster. Their stories aren't just inspiration, they're practical survival maps. Consider Maria, a Denver nurse whose husband's cancer diagnosis meant sudden income loss. Instead of draining retirement accounts, they tapped their emergency fund built through Roundup apps that saved spare change from daily purchases. Those $2 coffee transactions added up to $3,000 in a year, she shared in a Wall Street Journal interview. Their discipline in automating tiny savings created a buffer that bought crucial time to arrange medical leave without debt. The lesson? Start microscopic. Saving just 1% of each paycheck builds momentum faster than waiting for extra money that never comes. Across the country, software engineer Ben learned resilience through failure. After impulsively depleting his emergency fund for a dream vacation, his car engine failed months later. Stranded, he took high-interest payday loans that trapped him for 2 years. His turnaround came through a local credit union's Save to Win program, where savings deposits entered prize drawings. Winning $500 felt great, but the real jackpot was rebuilding $8,000 in 18 months, he told NerdWallet. Ben's experience spotlights a common blind spot. Emergency funds require emotional boundaries. Treat them like fire alarms. Only pull when smoke appears. Surprising lifelines often emerge where least expected. When teacher Jamal's school district cut positions during budget crises, his church community connected him with a side gig tutoring administrators' children. This network became his financial bridge, covering groceries while he trained for IT certification. Studies from the National Community Reinvestment Coalition confirm such connections accelerate recovery, with community-supported individuals rebuilding savings 30% faster than those going solo. As Jamal noted, pride costs more than asking for help. Avoid these pitfalls. First, never raid your fund for predictable expenses like holiday gifts. That's budget failure, not an emergency. Second, replenish immediately after use. Federal Reserve data shows those who delay restarting savings take 3 times longer to recover. Finally, remember that creativity beats deprivation. Like the Cleveland factory worker who negotiated bill holidays with utilities during slow seasons, preserving cash without sacrifice. These journeys prove financial safety isn't about luck or huge salaries. It's adopting proven behaviors. As Maria put it, my emergency fund didn't change the diagnosis, but it changed everything about how we faced it. Your turn begins not with dramatic leaps, but with today's small step forward. Chapter 4. Beyond the Basics, Part 1, The Power of Frugal Fun. Here's how financial resilience transforms when saving becomes joyful. Many assume building an emergency fund requires monastic sacrifice. Princeton researchers actually found experiences generate more lasting happiness than possessions, and often cost far less. My neighbor Sarah proved this when she traded her $200 monthly brunch habit for free botanical garden walks. Her savings grew while her joy did too, discovering rare orchids she'd never noticed rushing between reservations. Cities overflow with overlooked treasures. Chicago's Cultural Center offers free concerts beneath Tiffany domes. Austin's Bat Colony Emergence draws crowds at sunset. Local libraries lend more than books. Try tools in Oakland or museum passes in Columbus. These aren't compromises, they're upgrades hiding in plain sight. Consider the DIY renaissance. Portland's Repair PDX events teach mending clothes besides strangers becoming friends. When Mark's grill broke, he joined a Fix-It collective instead of buying new. The $5 replacement part saved $300, but the real win? He now hosts monthly barbecue tutorials. Transforming "I can't afford this" into "I created this" sparks a dopamine surge no shopping spree matches. Mindful spending reshapes relationships. Emma replaced $50 cocktail nights with potlucks where friends cook signature dishes. Her emergency fund gained $160 monthly, but the conversations deepened without bar noise. Studies confirm shared meals strengthen social bonds more than transactional outings. You're not cutting connections, you're rewiring them. The magic lies in cost per happiness math. That $150 concert ticket delivers 3 hours of joy, $50. Compare it to volunteering at the same festival. Free admission plus 8 hours of backstage camaraderie, $18.75 hour in experiential value. As Morgan Housel observes in The Psychology of Money, wealth is what you don't see, but the memories remain visible. This mindset shift prepares you for what's next, turning passions into income streams. When saving feels like discovery, side hustles become natural extensions rather than exhausting extras. Part 2. Side hustles and extra pennies. That moment when your budget spreadsheet reveals a $200 deficit for the month? It happens. But consider Sarah, a Cincinnati public school teacher. Facing rising classroom supply costs, she began photographing her vibrant bulletin boards for Instagram. Within a year, 50,000 followers led to sponsored posts paying her utility bills. Her story mirrors data from Bankrate's 2023 survey. 39% of Americans now earn side income, averaging $810 monthly. Side work shouldn't drain you. Start with what's already in your hands. Dave Ramsey's snowball method applies here. Begin tiny. A Boston nurse I coached baked 3 extra loaves of sourdough weekly for neighbors, netting $90, enough to cover her pet's vet fund. Platforms like TaskRabbit or Fiverr thrive because they monetize existing skills. Can you assemble IKEA furniture in 45 minutes? Fix a leaky faucet? Translate documents? That's your starting line. Balance is non-negotiable. Scott Pape's bucket system works wonders here. Dedicate one income stream solely to your emergency fund. When Marcos, a Denver mechanic, began restoring vintage radios on weekends, he routed all profits into a separate high-yield savings account. Within 18 months, he'd stockpiled $8,000 without overtime exhaustion. Treat this like a fitness routine. 3 focused hours weekly beats marathon sessions that invite burnout. Passive streams deserve attention too. Julie, a retired librarian in Austin, rents her driveway via Neighbor.com to commuters for $120 per month, funding her grandson's music lessons. Carl Richards would approve. Her one-page plan involved 0 ongoing effort after setup. Similarly, selling digital templates, lesson plans, budget trackers on Etsy generates income while you sleep. The FTC reports 23% of side hustlers now earn passively. Motivation wanes when payouts feel distant. Counter this with what Vicki Robin calls visibility walls. Tape a photo of your goal, e.g. a new transmission, beside your workspace. Every $50 earned, mark progress toward it visually. And celebrate micro wins. That first $100 milestone deserves a homemade cake, not guilt. Your turn. What skill have friends always praised? How could it solve someone's problem for $20? Text 3 people that offer today. The gap between panic and prepared narrows faster when earnings grow alongside savings. Next, we'll dismantle the false beliefs keeping wallets empty. Part 3. Myths that hold us back. So you've started squeezing extra cash from side gigs. Fantastic. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Earning more won't fix broken beliefs about money. Let's dismantle 3 toxic myths keeping your emergency fund empty, using hard evidence and real human stories. First, I don't earn enough to save. This feels rational when bills devour paychecks. Yet researchers at SaverLife tracked 30,000 low-income households and found something revolutionary. Those saving just $20 weekly weathered crises better than peers earning double but saving nothing. Why? Tiny sums build psychological momentum. Take Eva, a Detroit cafeteria worker Dave Ramsey interviewed. Earning $28 yearly, she automated $5 daily transfers, $35 weekly, into a separate account. In 18 months, she'd stockpiled $1,600, enough to fix a leaking roof without loans. Your first dollar matters more than your 100th. Second, emergencies won't happen to me. Human brains are wired to dismiss low-probability threats until they strike. Federal Reserve data shows 56% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency. Remember Blockbuster? They dismissed streaming as a niche concern. Compare that to Adobe, who shifted from box software to cloud subscriptions years before competitors. Their emergency fund, R&D dollars redirected early. Start treating your fund like a vaccine, irrelevant until the outbreak hits. Finally, it's too late to start. Morgan Housel reveals in The Psychology of Money that Ronald Reed, a gas station attendant and janitor, amassed $8 million before dying at 92. He started investing at 50. Time isn't your enemy. Inaction is. I met a retiree at a Bogleheads conference who saved her first $1,000 at 62. By 70, compound growth grew it to $12,000, enough to cover 2 hip replacements. How to shatter these myths? 1. For can't save, use Scott Pape's Mojo Bucket trick. Label a jar crisis repellent. Drop spare change daily. Seeing $347 become $87 in a month rewires your brain. 2. For it won't happen, calculate your personal risk probability. AAA reports 1 in 3 cars break down yearly. Multiply that by health crises. 43% of medical bills cause debt or job loss. BLS shows median tenure is 4 years. Numbers silence denial. 3. For too late. Adopt Vicki Robbins' Today's Bread principle. Save only for immediate needs, 3 months' expenses first. Long-term growth comes later. These aren't financial strategies, they're psychological armor. When Seattle chef Marcus lost his job during COVID, his $500 emergency fund, started 6 months prior, bought groceries while unemployment processed. That $500 felt like $5 million, he told me. Your turn. What's one myth you'll dismantle today? Part 4. Passing the torch. Consider Marcus's story. That $500 emergency fund didn't just buy groceries. It bought clarity. Once we've conquered our own financial fears, we hold something far more valuable than cash: the power to transform someone else's future. Research from Cambridge University shows children form money habits by age 7, yet 74% of parents avoid money talks, according to T. Rowe Price's annual survey. What are we really protecting them from? Start simple. For young kids, turn saving into something tactile. The Johnson family in Ohio uses labeled jars for gum, toys, and oops money. Their 5-year-old now proudly contributes coins when the car needs repairs. Teens, show them your actual budget. Karen, a nurse in Texas, shares her grocery spreadsheet during meal planning. Seeing $12 for blueberries versus $2 for oats made my daughter understand trade-offs, she told me. Real transformation happens when preparedness becomes shared purpose. When the Mendoza family's restaurant nearly closed during COVID, they held a Save Our Kitchen meeting. Their teenagers suggested switching to reusable napkins, saving $120 a month, and created TikTok promotions. That collective hustle built a $15,000 buffer in 6 months. The kids learned resilience isn't about having money, said Patriarch Luis. It's about creating options. What if you framed emergencies as teamwork opportunities? Try the 3 Why exercise during dinner. Why save? So the power stays on. Why does that matter? So we can do homework. Why is that important? So we choose our futures. Suddenly, abstract savings become stories of protection. Your emergency fund journey contains wisdom someone desperately needs. Maybe it's showing your niece how $5 weekly becomes $260 in a year, or explaining to aging parents why their paid-off house is a shield. Financial security isn't hoarded. It's passed hand to hand, like a lantern in the dark. Next, we'll discover how keeping that flame alive can spark surprising joy. Chapter 5. Your Financial Story Continues, Part 1. From Surviving to Thriving. Consider the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can cover a $500 car repair or a surprise medical bill. That peace isn't just comfort, it's rocket fuel for ambition. Financial security transforms how we dream. Studies from the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center show people with emergency savings are 3x more likely to pursue additional education or career changes. Why? Because when survival isn't your full-time job, your brain finally has bandwidth to build. Take Michael, a Chicago teacher whose story echoes principles from Clever Girl Finance. After building his 6-month emergency fund, he stopped seeing money as a fire extinguisher. Instead, he allocated $50 monthly towards Spanish classes, a skill that landed him a curriculum development role paying 40% more. Or Priya, whose $8,000 Mojo Bucket, inspired by Scott Pape's Barefoot Investor, gave her the courage to leave her marketing job. She spent 9 months prototyping eco-friendly packaging now stocked in 200 stores. This shift follows a pattern. 1. Safety nets become launch pads. Dave Ramsey's Baby Step 3 emergency fund isn't an end goal. It's permission to invest. Like a trapeze artist's safety harness, it lets you attempt daring moves. 2. Knowledge compounds confidence. Warren Buffett spent his teens reading every investing book at his local library. Start small. The Psychology of Money explains complex concepts through stories. Try micro-learning. Listen to one finance podcast during your commute. 3. Progress needs recognition. Tony Robbins advocates celebrating small wins. Saved your first $100 toward investing? Brew premium coffee instead of instant. Reached 5K? Take that pottery class you've bookmarked. These rewards wire your brain for momentum. Morgan Housel nailed it. Money's greatest intrinsic value is its ability to give you control over your time. With your emergency fund secured, what once felt reckless, negotiating a raise, starting that Etsy shop, learning options trading, becomes calculated. Your money is no longer hostage to chaos. It's an employee ready to work for you. So tonight, ask yourself, if I couldn't fail financially, what would I attempt? Write 3 answers. Then, as Vicki Robbins suggests in Your Money or Your Life, take one action before sunrise. Email a mentor, open a brokerage account, or enroll in that course. Security isn't a cage. It's the wind beneath your wings. Part 2. When insurance joins the team, that confidence you've built, the freedom to take risks. Let's talk about what happens when life throws more than a missed paycheck your way. Your emergency fund is your first responder, ready with cash for the deductible when your teenager backs into the mailbox, or covering groceries if a sudden illness sidelines you. But what about the really big stuff? That's where insurance steps in as your strategic partner. Think of them working together. Your savings handles the immediate, manageable blows. Insurance shields you from the potentially catastrophic financial avalanches. Consider health insurance. Without it, a single hospital stay can erase years of savings. With it, your emergency fund covers the deductible and copays, letting the insurance handle the massive $50,000 hospital bill. It's like having a specialized team. Your savings tackles the initial skirmish. The cavalry insurance arrives for the major battle. Auto insurance works similarly. A fender bender? Your emergency fund pays the deductible. A total loss or major injury lawsuit? Your liability and collision coverage prevent financial ruin. Real-world example. After Hurricane Katrina, households with both adequate flood insurance and accessible savings recovered significantly faster and more completely than those relying on just one or neither. Choosing the right policies is crucial, yet often confusing. Avoid the trap of being underinsured to save a few dollars monthly. That cheap policy might leave massive gaps when disaster strikes. Conversely, don't overpay for coverage you don't realistically need. A single 25-year-old rarely needs the same life insurance coverage as a primary breadwinner with a mortgage and 3 kids. Dave Ramsey often emphasizes term life insurance for most people. Straightforward protection without complex investment components that drive up costs. Scott Pape's bucket analogy fits well here too. Your emergency fund is your mojo bucket for immediate cash needs. Insurance premiums are part of your safety bucket, protecting your other buckets from being drained entirely. Common pitfalls? Letting policies lapse because premiums feel like an expense, not protection. Or failing to review policies annually. Life changes, marriage, kids, new house, job shift mean your coverage needs change too. Not understanding the details. What's actually covered, what the exclusions are, what your deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums truly mean. Remember Blockbuster dismissing the streaming threat? Being uninsured or underinsured for major risks is a similar gamble with your financial stability. Integrating insurance isn't complex. Start with the essentials: health, auto, if you drive, renters or homeowners. If others depend on your income, term life is vital. Disability insurance, often overlooked, protects your most valuable asset, your earning potential. Morgan Housel hits the nail on the head. The real value of both your emergency fund and insurance is the profound psychological peace they provide. You sleep better knowing you're not one accident or diagnosis away from disaster. This security, built on your savings and wisely chosen policies, is the bedrock that truly allows your thriving chapter to unfold. It frees you to focus on growth, knowing your foundation is solid. So tonight, pull out those insurance policies. Do you understand them? Do they still fit your life? It's the next logical, powerful step in writing your resilient financial story. Part 3. Staying motivated on the journey. That feeling of security Morgan described, it's powerful, isn't it? But let's be real. Maintaining momentum in saving can feel like pushing a boulder uphill during a rainstorm. Take James, a nurse from Austin. He built a solid emergency fund, only to drain half of it when his furnace died in January. The setback left him wondering, what's the point? His story isn't unique. A Federal Reserve study found 40% of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency. So how do you keep going when life throws icy water on your progress? Start small and celebrate often. Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover followers famously use visual trackers, coloring in squares for every $50 saved. Why? Because neuroscience shows small wins triggered dopamine hits. Scott Pape's Barefoot Investor method takes this further. He suggests allocating splurge money immediately after funding your Mojo emergency bucket. When you hit $1,000 saved, take that $20 splurge cash and enjoy a guilt-free pizza night. These micro-celebrations rewire your brain to associate saving with reward. Now consider support systems. Chelsea Fagan's Financial Diet community proves this. Members who joined accountability groups saved 30% faster than solo savers. When Erin Lowry interviewed millennials for Broke Millennial, she found those who shared savings goals with one trusted friend were twice as likely to rebuild after setbacks. Not comfortable sharing numbers? Try Tony Robbins' Hour of Power tweak. Spend 60 minutes monthly reviewing your progress alone with your favorite beverage. The ritual builds self-trust. Your why needs constant reinforcement. Vicki Robbins' Your Money or Your Life exercise still works. Tape a note to your debit card asking, does this purchase align with my freedom? For deeper motivation, study how Marie Curie persisted through 4 years in a leaky shed to isolate radium. Translate that to finances. When tempted to skip a savings transfer, ask, what future problem am I preventing? Remember Sarah, the Chicago teacher who saved $15 over 5 years? During strikes, her fund covered bills. Her secret? She kept a victory jar, dropping in notes like, paid for Pedro's braces without debt. When motivation faded, she'd pull out 3 notes. It's about creating tangible proof of progress. Automation is your safety net. Carl Richards' one-page financial plan insists, treat savings like a utility bill. Set recurring transfers for payday. Apps like Digit analyze spending patterns to squirrel away spare change. Users save $150 monthly without noticing. If you must pause saving after an emergency, schedule the restart date immediately. Bola Sokumbi's Clever Girl finance readers who did this resumed 85% faster. Saving isn't about perfection. It's about showing up again tomorrow. Every dollar saved is a brick in the fortress protecting your future. What small win will you celebrate today? Part 4. Writing your next chapter. Take a moment to flip through your mental scrapbook. Remember when unexpected expenses made your stomach drop? Now you've got that emergency fund cushion. Maybe not perfect, but present. That shift changes everything. It's like training for a marathon. Once you've run your first 5K, the next distance seems possible because you've proved your legs can carry you. Financial growth thrives on reflection. Grab any notebook, the kind with coffee stains counts, and answer 3 questions. What financial fear has your emergency fund eased? What surprised you about your saving ability? What became possible once the panic faded? Jenna, a teacher from Ohio, did this exercise after building her $8,000 safety net. Her journal revealed she'd stopped checking her bank app obsessively. That mental space let her finally design the pottery business she'd dreamed about for years. Your next goal should scare you just enough. After Scott Pape's readers fill their Mojo emergency bucket, they immediately start a fire extinguisher bucket for debt. Dave Ramsey's community celebrates debt-free screams, but only after establishing that foundational emergency fund. What's your equivalent? Maybe it's investing $50 monthly in low-cost index funds, saving for a career change certification, creating a home repair sub-fund. Bola Sokumbi's research shows people who set specific next-step goals after reaching their emergency target are 73% more likely to maintain financial momentum. The key? Attach goals to identity shifts. Instead of "I want $10 for investing," try "I'm becoming someone who builds wealth systematically." Tony Robbins calls this story editing. When a mechanic in Detroit started viewing himself as an investor, he automatically redirected his side hustle income into a brokerage account. Share your progress selectively. Financial psychologist Brad Klontz found that people who discuss money wins with one trusted friend increase their accountability by 40%. That doesn't mean posting dollar amounts online. It might look like telling your sister, "I stopped using credit cards for emergencies," or joining a community like the Clever Girl Finance Facebook group where members celebrate saving milestones with virtual confogi. Financial security isn't a destination. It's a relationship. Like Vicki Robbins' readers discovered, the magic happens when you stop chasing arbitrary numbers and start aligning money with what makes you feel truly secure. Maybe your next chapter includes volunteering because work isn't urgent anymore, or taking a lower-paying job that feeds your soul. Your emergency fund did more than protect you. It gave you the pen to rewrite your rules. What sentence do you want to write in your financial story next month? Start there.